97% of all divorce cases end in settlement. That, people hear that number and they don't realize that, it doesn't mean we're going to court and we're fighting tooth and nail like George Clooney. We're absolutely going to try and reach a settlement. Settlement is often much more cost effective than any type of trial would ever be. When it comes to spouses, usually there's only one or two issues that are actually involved that they're really going to fight about. Oftentimes it's time sharing with the kids and the house. Those are usually the big ones. If we can kind of get to the root cause and kind of reach a middle ground, we're going to settle. And that's great for both parties, especially children. Settlement discussions can happen almost immediately after filing a petition. Oftentimes, in fact, for couples that have planned the divorce and are amicable, and amicable is just a fancy word to say friendly with one another, they're able to start talking about their settlement right when they're getting ready to file. Oftentimes, if there's no children involved and there's maybe just a few pieces of property or maybe one marital home, you can do a simplified divorce petition, which is going to have a settlement agreement in the petition. And you can even waive a waiting period and get divorced pretty much immediately. Everything that's filed in a family law or domestic case becomes public record. While you may not think, well, I'm not Kim Kardashian, so I don't really need to worry about it, it matters. It matters especially for your children. So the more you can settle outside of court, the more freedom and control you, as the parties, have with your own divorce. Remember, divorce is something that you're asking the court to do. So the more decisions that you guys can make, the less decisions the court has to make for you. If you guys decide to reach a settlement, that settlement is going to be incorporated into an order of the court, as if the court told you to do it. So it's kind of funny, whereas your guys are agreeing between each other, but then the court's saying, that was a good idea, I'm going to order you to do it. So the court almost takes credit for your guys' decision making, which is great for you as the parties because it gives you the ability to enforce that settlement agreement as if it was an order from the court, not just a contract, which sometimes is incredibly important, especially when it comes to issues like alimony and child support. If a party comes to us and they know that everything that they've discussed with their spouse, the other spouse is going to disagree, then we're going to have to go a litigated route. The litigated route has things like a temporary relief hearing, has things like an actual trial, where it could be 1, 2, or sometimes even 4 days of presenting evidence involving witnesses. Unfortunately, it becomes more expensive. Depending on why the other side was acting the way they were, the other side may be forced to pay the attorney's fees to litigate that. And sometimes that's a tool that parties can use to push the other side to negotiate and to get to a settlement agreement. Settlements are not for everybody. Sometimes if a case comes to us and it's let's call it a non-moneyed spouse, so somebody who's been at home for the entire marriage, they have primarily been the caretaker of the children. They haven't worked in, let's say, 20 years, and the marriage is, a long-term marriage. They may have received an offer from their spouse saying, hey, I'll give you half the house and no alimony as long as you sign these papers. I would almost certainly tell that potential client not to settle. Rather than not settling right up front, I might say, why don't you do a counteroffer for A, B, and C? And the reason being is I want to put whoever comes to me on the same footing as their spouse. They should never come to me and feel like they're going to be pressured into a settlement agreement when they shouldn't be. Here at Yaffa Family Law Group, we only deal with family law cases. This is it. 97% of those cases settle. Very few cases and make it all the way to trial. That does not mean that we don't prep every single case as if it could go, because we do. There's a wonderful expression that says, if you want peace, prepare for war. And that's true for settlement negotiations. So if you want to reach a settlement agreement, you prepare for trial. And that's how we operate. We are a smaller firm. We've got 5 attorneys here at Yaffa Family Law Group. And some of the advantages of having that smaller firm is that we can give the client more personalized attention. And this again applies to even the high net worth case, all the way down to that flat fee consulting case. There's no kind of fly-by-night legal forms type of thing. This is every person that calls up to Yaffa Family Law Group gets that individualized personal attention. There is a unique thing in the Yaffe Family Law Group that separates us from, let's say, a different law firm. We have an in-house CPA. We do all of our billing down to what's called the lowest biller. And that might seem like it's saying the lowest bidder, but it is not. In fact, we do that to stretch the client's dollar as much as possible. If there's something that I can delegate to my certified public accountant, I will. Because when it comes to divorce, there's oftentimes lots and lots of financial background that needs to be kind of dived into or dove into. And for a sole practitioner or a larger firm, oftentimes they don't have those resources available, where here at Yaffe Family Law Group, we do. One of the first things that I'll ask you during our initial consultation is, have you spoken with your spouse about the possibility of settlement? Do you think you could agree on most issues? That's one of the first things I ask, because that's going to determine, number one, the manner of the case. Are we going to be able to kind of keep this out of the courts as much as possible? Should we be filing a simplified petition? So once I have those answers, I'm going to give you a game plan on what to do next. If you haven't spoken to your spouse about the possibility of settlement, well, maybe you and I would speak about what you actually want. Sometimes maybe there's a particular artifact in the house that you want, but you don't actually want the house at all. Well, I'll tell you a game plan in order to get you that artifact and not take the house, but still walk away with a fair deal.